Brooms can be, there's no one broom, there are hundreds of brooms, okay? But let's say brooms can be made out of grass, okay? So a lot of brooms in Rajasthan are made out of a grass called panni. Panni actually grows in Uttar Pradesh. It comes from Uttar Pradesh to Rajasthan. We'll talk about it more. Now, when I'm a city boy. I didn't grow up. I grew up right in the heart of this city. And I first saw panni. Panni is a blade of grass. I said, grass. But within that grass, there are 4 components. I knew nothing about it. Within the grass, there is a stem, sarkanda. There is the outer layering, moonj. And there is what you may say the flowering tendrils or sirki. So panni, sarkanda, moonj, sirki. And brooms can be made out of all 4 components. You can have brooms made out of all those 4 different elements. Quite amazing. A little blade of grass can be so minute. So much you can learn in a blade of grass, right? And of course, brooms are made out of khejur and date palm, and brooms are made out of bamboo, and of course, brooms are made out of the king of brooms, which is the full jharu. And we know the full jharu comes from a reed, which grows primarily in Mizoram. What I learned was fascinating. By the time that reed comes from Mizoram in a truck all the way to Rajasthan, it shrinks. It becomes tiny. So you see the organic properties of the material that you're using, it's all live. Everything is live. Then you begin to learn about the uses of the broom and the social customs of the brooms and the beliefs of the brooms and the superstitions relating to brooms. It's a completely different world. Rural Rajasthan is huge. So you can learn that the broom is actually the goddess Lakshmi. She has the same power. She is prosperity for the home. You never give a bride a broom when she is leaving the house because all your wealth will go away. You never sweep the broom after sundown, never. Then it was fascinating. Do you place the broom vertically or horizontally? When vertical, when horizontal? Then you realize the broom has all kinds of healing propensities. So you might have heard of the practice of jhara. Huh? Jhara is when you take the broom and you wipe away, you brush away all those eczema, skin-related problems. And so the broom has a kind of shamanic quality. It has a shamanic power, you know. It's not like in the West where they have a witch on a broomstick or something. It's not like that at all. It's far more complex. And we came across a Sufi saint called Jharu Baba. And Jharu Baba grew up in mounds of garbage. He lived in garbage and he became a Jharu Baba. And people go to Jharu Baba to get all their problems solved. And we also came across someone called Bungri Mata, who's not as ancient as she appears. She's a reinvented goddess. But like this, there were whole lots of incredible things. So brooms as offerings. Just as you offer flowers and coconuts and everything, you can offer a broom to a deity. Amazing. Then at a more material, a more political level, brooms open up the world of caste in India. The moment you start talking about broom makers, there are all kinds of broom makers, and they come from different caste groups. So when I entered the field, I inherited what you call a taxonomy. There was a kind of a chart that had emerged. And the taxonomy correlated broom maker, identity of broom maker, to caste and to material of the broom made. So when I came into the field, Banjaras who were living in Jodhpur were making panni brooms. The panni broom is a poor man's broom. 10 rupees, 5 rupees. The Koli community, which is also called Bargunda. So we're learning about caste. As you know, all over India, one caste will have different names. So Koli community, definitely they were from Andhra Pradesh. Why? Because they counted their numerals in Telugu. They were speaking Marwari, but they were counting in Telugu. So obviously somewhere they've come from Andhra. And they made brooms out of khejur. They had a control over khejur. And then we encountered the self-identified Harijan community. And I say self-identified Harijan community because obviously in today's India, we don't use that word Harijan loosely. We are fully aware of the Dalitization of politics. But in Rajasthan, which is a very feudal state, the Dalit movement is not strong. And so there are a lot of communities who still identify themselves as Harijan. And Harijans have a monopoly on one broom, which is the bamboo broom, the big broom, and the most expensive of brooms, that's the solid mota kind of broom. And later on, we came across a community called Bagaria, very large community all over Rajasthan, living mainly on the highways, nomadic, very poor community. And what we found out was a lesson in caste is that there's a very complex relationship between ritual identity, social identity, political identity, and economic status. So the Bagaria community was the poorest of the poor, very poor community. But they were OBC. They were in a higher caste group. So we realized that even they can only buy land from upper caste people. They cannot buy land from lower caste people, which means they cannot buy land because they're too poor. This is how caste operates, And then you turn to the Harijan community, and the Harijan community has more political agency. It has certainly more earning capacity. Why? Because the broom itself is worth more, but also Harijans are the only broom makers who are also municipal cleaners. So they have a double job. They work also for the municipality and earn 8,000 rupees or whatever. But, so there's social mobility, you might say economic mobility, but that does not translate into social mobility. They remain the most stigmatized of all communities. So these are the different kinds of dynamics that we had to encounter. So the broom is a very complex object. It's a repository of contradictions. Very simple. When you take a broom, why do you need a broom? You need a broom to clean dirt. You need a broom to order a space. In cleaning the dirt, does the broom become dirty? Or does the broom have the power to clean dirt? So is it dirty or is it clean? Is it pure or is it impure? This is the contradiction that we have to live with. It's a very, very complex kind of thing. So on the one hand, yes, you can say broom is associated with dehumanization, humiliation, all of that, degradation. But the broom is also a weapon, and it can be used as a source of resistance. If you had to be beaten on the back with a broom, you know what that means. Nothing more humiliating. Okay. So these are the many things that you can learn from the broom. So before I show you all the images of the museum, the context continues. And this is a difficult thing to share, and it's a very personal story and a painful story to tell. Because it was the last time I met Komal Kothari. Difficult to talk about it. But I share it because I got something from that. I don't want to make myself, it's not a guru-shishya relationship. We were rather modern, but I received something from that, which was something I'll remember for the rest of my life. So what was that? Komalda wanted to take me to the site of the museum called Arna-Jharna. So Arna-Jharna, there's no, Arna is forest, Jharna is spring, there's no forest, There's no spring. It's just rough wasteland. It's scrubland. It's stony. It's full of mines. I don't know if you know what has happened in Rajasthan, but the mining has destroyed the ecology. These miners are a mafia. They're dangerous people. So that's the territory we are dealing with, okay? So we arrived at the crossroads of Arna-Jharna, and we stopped the car to see something that was so terrifying, so awesome, so epic. It's hard to describe. What did we see? We saw a field of animal carcasses, skeletal remains of animals, just bones. Like, you couldn't say where it began, where it ended. It was just a limitless field of bones, just animal carcasses, like bleached under the sun. You had no words. You're just looking at it. And then I began to look more carefully, and I noticed that inside those bones, there were color. Pink, blue, pink, blue, pink, blue, little patches of color. So I said, what's that? And then I realized, oh my God, that's plastic, which the animals had eaten during their lifetimes. And because plastic is non-biodegradable, they die with plastic in their stomachs, in their skeletals. It's a horrible, horrible image and reality. So I turned to Komalda. He was munching his betel nut. I said, plastic. He shrugged his shoulder. He knows that. He said, Dekho, look more carefully. And then he told the whole team, look inside and see if the horns and the hooves of the animals are intact. Khur hai, singh hai. What a strange question. But that's a Komal Kothari question. So I was totally surprised. I looked at him and I said, and he said, bones are worth a lot of money. They're used in the glue and pharmaceutical industries. That's all he said. And by this time, I guess I just knew the way his mind worked. So I think this is what he was saying, and this is what I want to share. If bones are worth a lot of money, they have to be collected. Right? In order to collect the bone, first you have to cut the bone. In order to cut the bone, you need tools, churi, some kind of knife. And to use the churi, you need skills. Collection, tools, and skills. Okay? And you can be sure that if we are talking about a country called India, then this task will be relegated and delegated to the lowest of low-caste communities, the most degraded of low-caste communities who are now threatening at long last not to pick up and collect the carcasses of dead animals. This is just going on, the protest in Una and other places. But for centuries, we have taken for granted that some people will do the dirtiest work for us. That's the reality. So we could stop the narrative there and we could say, you know, Dalit degradation, humiliation, all of that. Yes. But Komalda went one step further, and this is what made him different. Because Komalda actually knew bone collectors. That is what made him different. He wasn't just an ideologue or a theorist or an activist who talked about it. He knew the bone collectors. And what he knew was something very interesting that we don't know. And that is that bone collectors are also genealogists. It's like the Langas and the Manganiyars. They are not just singers, they are genealogists. They sing the genealogy of entire caste groups and families. He always said, you know that as historians, without genealogy, you cannot write history. And once he put it very beautifully, he said, no genealogy, no caste. So every caste group needs a genealogy. And these bone collectors, part-time, were providing the singing of these genealogies. That is the knowledge that he had. Okay? So, what can we learn from this? Why am I telling you all this in the context of museum building? We too are collectors. If you want to run a museum, you have to collect objects. We too need our tools. We too need skills, like the bone collectors. But the real question is that supposing we collected songs, let's say, and I have a beautiful banner saying, Songs of the Downtrodden. It could easily bring a lot of people. But what is the point of collecting songs of the downtrodden if you don't know where those songs are coming from? What is the context of those songs? And if you as a museum builder or a curator, you don't know anything about how to show the context, which in this case would be poverty and humiliation and all of that, what the hell does it mean to provide songs? So that's what I learned. I cannot say that I was able to put it into practice in Arna-Jharna, but I can say it's one of those life principles that will remain with me for the rest of my life. And if I build a museum again, you can be sure that this is the primary insight. Okay. Could we have the lights off now? And we can just... So, it's enough. Arna-Jharna is built on the remains of a sandstone mine. So this was a Kacha sandstone mine, and it was abandoned. It was abandoned because the sandstone was not of good quality. So what we inherited in terms of the land was land with a big pit, a khadda. And that's what it was. Okay. Now, I feel very strongly, if you want to build a museum, you've got to begin with land. You've got to know your land. Unfortunately, in the city, we don't know land at all. We only know real estate. How much does the land cost? What is the land that you're building on? That's the first thing you've got to learn. So this is a sandstone mine, and we have to deal with land. Could we have the first image? Yeah, thank you. So that's the museum. And as you can see, it almost blends with the land. There's nothing very ostentatious about it. It's a mud structure. There are basically 3 buildings and 2 outer enclosures. There's a courtyard in the middle. Cactus. Next image, please. I'm very fond of that tree. It's the Khejri tree. And for me, the Khejri tree is very much a treasured, it's not an object, it's a presence in the museum. Why? Khejri is very difficult to grow. It takes many, many, many years before that stubbly little tree can grow in the desert. The Bishnoi community worship it. And it's the only Khejri tree in our entire site. So for me, that Khejri tree is very much part of the museum. I would never want to let go of it. The buildings can go, but the Khejri tree must remain. So that's a closer image of the museum, and there's the Khejri tree next. Next image, please. Yeah. This is not exactly the wall painting, which is called Mandna, comes from different parts of Rajasthan. And it just gives you an idea. There's a thatched roof. There you can see some kind of poster there, very minimal. And this is the wall, and behind the wall there's a courtyard. So the courtyard became a kind of laboratory. That's where the grass was growing. So instead of talking about the grass, we'd use the grass and actually demonstrate how things can be done. Next. There again, you can see something of the distribution of the posters, it says. It's very minimal. Now, we faced a problem. So it's a 3-module structure, and that was Komalda's idea. It had to be 3 huts. Now, this was my first challenge. Komalda was not a very dogmatic man. He was not a very theoretical man. He was a very relaxed man, actually. But he had one theory in life, and that one theory was very, very tenacious. And the theory was this. He believed all of Rajasthan can be understood through 3 food grains: jowar, bajra, and makki. And he really believed that these 3 food grains are the basic foundations on the basis of which you can understand all of Rajasthan. So when he first said this and I heard it, I said, well, what about wheat? And he just shrugged his shoulders. Wheat I associate with modernity. Amazing statement. Now, it is true that if you go into the interior of Rajasthan, rural Rajasthan, yes, people who eat bajra. People who eat makki. People who eat ikzat, they don't cross. Wheat is, of course, entering. And he felt, this was his theory, that the 3-grain theory had to be applied to the brooms as well. And I found it was not possible to correlate grains and brooms. It was too complicated. You know, because if you take the jharu broom, is it growing in which grain is it growing? Grain area is it found? It's found everywhere, you know. So, and grass. How can you limit where the grass is growing? And then what about those materials which are not growing in Rajasthan? So the bamboo is not growing in Rajasthan, it's coming from Kerala. The grasses are coming from Uttar Pradesh. The Phul Jharu reed is coming all the way from Mizoram. So I could not correlate that understanding of brooms and grains. So I had a different rationale. And I said there are 3 spaces. So the first space, we shall focus on brooms in outer spaces. What brooms do people use in outer spaces like courtyards and streets and highways, that kind of thing. The second room was brooms in inner spaces, interiors, courtyards, because they're completely different sets of brooms. They are gendered differently, they have different materials, etc. And the third was a third